Welcome to Only Human. Today's guest is Bryce Minnix. For the first portion of this podcast, Bryce and I talk about boundaries, learning from other people's mistakes versus learning from our own mistakes, and forming an identity. For the rest of the episode, we talk about the stigma behind entertaining conspiracy theories, and then we talk about some of our all-time favorite conspiracies. Enjoy the podcast. What's going on, Bryce?
Yo, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Dude, I'm good. I'm happy to have you on my podcast.
Thanks, man. Happy to be here. Happy to be here for sure.
Hell yeah. So, Bryce, what event led you to your biggest personal revelation?
That's a good question. I would say for me, it was I started off college at Ohio University, OU. Went there for 3 semesters, summer semester, then freshman year. And I was there for opening weekend sophomore year. And fully moved in on, I think, Friday or Saturday of that weekend. I think Friday. And was out partying, having a good time with friends. And I saw one of my good buddies put another friend's acquaintance head through a drywall. And like, I don't know what it was. I'm not going to lie. I was feeling good. I was feeling really good. And like, I was just sitting there, man. And like, I don't know. I really hadn't had much like self-reflection up to that point, as like embarrassing as that is. But like, I kind of just had that aha moment where I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, I was having a really good time. Some would say too good of a time, you know. But I was having a really good time, but I didn't really have much direction in my life. Not saying I have a lot of direction in my life now, but I was kind of just kind of stuck and didn't really know what I was doing. And I literally got in my car that night and drove all the way back to Hudson, like 3.5-hour drive, however long it is. Didn't get home until like past 3 a.m. Had a headlight missing from my car, drove all the way back, and just said, fuck it. I came back and got my shit the next week. And I was like, I don't really want to go to OU anymore. I don't know what I'm doing. And I felt like I was wasting my life there. So that was like a big change in who I was for sure.
Okay. So just to summarize, it felt like that night, was it your friend that, did your friend get the head put through the drywall, or was that your friend put someone else's head through the drywall?
He put someone's head through the drywall, but I also knew the guy whose head went through the drywall. Okay. I wasn't as cool with him, but it was like the other dude, and like, it's nothing against that dude if he's listening to this or whatever, but it's like, I don't know, that's kind of had that moment where like, I just kind of thought about it, and like, I was like, I'm just getting drunk here, and like, I don't know, I felt like I just didn't want to be one of those people who just kind of wasted my life. And like,
so the shit you're getting into, that was like, that encapsulated sort of like your lifestyle at college. Like that moment.
Yeah, up until that point, that was pretty on par with like what was happening.
Okay, so that was like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, so like that dude's concussion was like a revelation for me.
So that came down, did that have anything to do, I mean, it could have been part of it. So was it like the association of you to that event? Or was it just like, that was like a cascading effect that sort of illuminated like your life up to that point?
That's a good question. I'd say it's probably like more of like the cascading type thing, because I wasn't very much associated besides like holding a beer in the room and being like, oh shit. Because like they were just wrestling. It wasn't like a fuck you type situation where like they'd start brawling. Like there was 2 big dudes having fun, you know, just wrestling. And like one dude was on the receiving end of getting his fucking head put through a wall at like a shitty OU house where like everything was made of cardboard. But yeah, that's kind of encapsulated and like definitely avalanched onto like just fuck ups, and I don't want to say regrets, because like you learn from everything bad that happens, but like stuff that I didn't want to be me and like associated with me, you know? So like I kind of had that moment of like, I should really get my shit together. Like, I'm paying for school. Like, I'm here. I'm going to have a good time. I ended up going to Kent State. Still had a very good time. But, like, I actually went to class. I was a very good student at OU, which was, like, weird. Because I was doing drugs and getting drunk. And yeah, it just wasn't. I kind of let loose. Like first time being really far away, even though I still was in Ohio. Like I know people make that a thing, like, oh, you got to leave your state, all this,
Right.
but like I was basically in like fucking Kentucky, and like because yeah, Athens is just like the butt crack of Ohio, and yeah, I just didn't really. I don't know if it was homesickness or what, but like I just kind of went balls to the wall and kind of lost touch of who I felt like I should be or who I was,
Okay.
and I just didn't want to be there anymore.
Okay, then I think that's perfect for where I wanted to go. So there's like two little branches here. So I'm gonna save the second branch for later. But the first one, I'm gonna ask you like a series of like abstract questions that have like seemingly trivial answers, but I'm
Yeah.
curious to see how you answer them and how to rope back to what you said earlier about regret. So the first question I want to ask is learning from mistakes more valuable than learning from, I would say, like warning or like a doomsayer being like, hey man, don't try this or else this is going to happen? Is you avoiding that on the same level as you going through it and learning like the hard way?
There's definitely. I'll preface it by saying there's a lot of upside to both because naturally now, since kind of the OU situation, like among a lot of other things that have happened in my life, but like I'm definitely more cautious now. Like I was talking about this with like my buddy Ben the other day. Like we're like if we would go on like Top Thrill Dragster now, because
Yeah.
like I would do that shit when I was young and like it was like oh fuck yeah, but now I'm like oh shit man, like I might have a heart attack if I got on that. Like I'm not the same as I was. I'm not built the same, but like
Exactly.
learning from those things too, of like uh, mistakes that you have definitely holds greater weight in my opinion
Yes.
because you try not to replicate those mistakes and hopefully if it's not like too traumatic of an event you can take something away from it that's positive.
Yes, for sure. And so my question to you now is again, still abstract, but I think the answer is less trivial. When it comes down to learning from mistakes,
Mhm.
do you think that difference in value is worth it, given what you went through? Like you had to
uh
like take that year. Is that worth it?
yeah. Yeah, in my opinion, yeah, it's definitely going to be different case by case for everybody, but up up until the way I've like lived my life at this point, I think for sure, because like I wouldn't be the guy that I am today without every single thing that's happened to me up until this point, good, bad, everything, especially bad. I wouldn't be the type of person that I am today, which for better or for worse, I still have a shitload of flaws.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel more comfortable where I am today than where I was 1, 2, 3, 4 years ago.
Right, for sure. And I think it's interesting because you know who Kevin Samuels is?
Uh, that sounds familiar. Yeah.
Okay, he's that dude who was on the show and that one girl who thought that she was more attractive than she was looking for a high value man. He says, ma'am, you're average at best.
Yeah, I know Kevin Samuels. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's like a savage. And so one lady walked in or was on a show and she said that, I learned from she randomly said, I don't know where I learned from all my mistakes. It's like the best way I learn. And he said, man, that is one of like, he didn't say the shittiest way, but he was like, that is one of the worst ways to live your life. But for me personally, I was like, I'm honestly on the same page as her because for me personally, when people try to give me warnings and things, like, it's not that I'm like, I mean, I am anti-authority like naturally, but I feel like it's usually one ear out the other, like no matter what. And I am totally fine learning immediately when it comes to making mistakes.
Yeah.
Like on my own. Cause like the way that you sort of said it is that it sticks with you. Cause like you can always have an experience and like, sometimes if you don't like, even if you do process things, like you still have like an immediate like emotional reference. Like when you think back on certain things, you can feel what it felt like immediately. And that's like your reminder. You're like, oh, that's, you know what I mean? But like when you
Yeah,
have it like
100%.
from, sorry, no,
Sorry, go
continue.
on. I was gonna say just like quite literally like a thing that happened to me when I was young. I was living in Atlanta, so I was probably like 8, 9 years old. My mom told me to get the bread out of the oven, and I literally just grabbed it with my bare fucking hands because I was young and dumb, and was like, I don't need an oven mitt, and I dropped it. But like grabbing it feeling my hand get burnt to all shit.
Yeah.
I never did that again, you know?
Yeah,
Like
that's a
that's like
perfect
a
example.
very literal, simple, stupid fucking example, but like you learn from those type of things. Like
Yeah,
if
no, that's
it hurt
perfect.
you this way, I'm not gonna do it again, you know?
Yes. And so going back to like the aspect of regret, I know a lot of people like regrets. I mean, I regret like dumb things I say. Like, it's weird because when people talk about regret, I feel like people talk about like grand life mistakes. But now that I've been doing this podcast, I feel like a lot of people actually don't regret like their biggest mistakes. And it's funny because like now when I think back on my life, I regret just like the tiny cringy things I say like in conversation way more than I regret like, you know, associating with certain people, like any of that. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So my question to you is that like, when it comes down to regret, like, do you have, this is going to sound sort of abstract, or maybe too, like, I don't want to frame it in a certain way that makes it like, that puts you in a spot to answer it to, like, basically. So are there any regrets that you have in your life currently that like you either have accepted that you'll never accept, or are there things that, like, what is the nature of your regrets today? I guess I should say. It's a very abstract question, but I feel like you might have a good answer for that.
No, I know what you mean. Like, are you saying like, are there things that if I could, I would truly go back and change?
I'll say yes, but what is, on top of that, what is like the magnitude of those regrets? Like, are they huge life mistakes, or are they like simple, like, oh, and that I made an ass of myself in that class, that it's just a cringy memory where like if I went back and changed it, nothing would have probably changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, yeah. I have those things where like they're very tiny, but like I just have like one major life thing where I'm like, oh, okay, I like fucked up. I wish I could redo that. But yeah, for the most part it's all like kind of trivial bullshit, small stuff that I'm just like nitpicking at, you know?
Okay, so you would say in terms of like your biggest life mistakes that you do not regret.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's interesting. Like, I don't know if you have anything to say about that, because I think we've basically made a good like showing of it, is that for whatever reason, people's biggest life mistakes are the ones that they don't regret, and because they're like the biggest like shapers of the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And so going back to what you said originally, did you have anything to say about that before I go on?
No, yeah, nothing specific about it.
Okay, so when it came down to you talking about like your identity, about like who you wanted to be, was that the first moment where your identity came into play, or was your identity something that you had, like what you wanted to be, who you wanted to be perceived as? Was that something you had in the back of your mind going into college, or was that also something that came rushing to the forefront during that moment?
That was definitely something I had before college. Like high school, like I always wanted to be like, I've been somebody who like my favorite thing is like making people laugh, and like when I was younger that was putting at like the expense of myself. Like I didn't care if I looked like a fool or anything, and like just trying to make people laugh and have a good time, you know. But like yeah, in terms of just everything in general with that, I definitely had like an ego where I was like, I wanted to be perceived this way, and like I wanted to look like this, do this, etc., etc. But it was definitely different for college because it was less ego driven and more so of like what I actually felt inside and prioritizing that.
Okay. So how did your behavior change after
that? Definitely just doing more stuff for me. And I've always, not necessarily like a people pleaser, because I still say like fuck you to some requests and shit, you know, but definitely like trying to always be on the good side of people and this and that. And like I got to a point where like I have cut people out of my life, but more so like a big example is like I was working for Amazon as an area manager, working a shitload of hours, and just didn't really, it was a great job, got great pay, can't complain about it. Amazon's not as bad as people make it. I'll say that on Prime Day today,
Paid
There was no
shill.
people peeing in bottles where I was at. Not at least me managing them. Everybody peed in the bathroom like a civilized person. But just like stuff that I really didn't like, I was more comfortable just cutting out and doing things for me and like my overall well-being, mental health, however you want to put it. I felt like I had more control of my life, you know?
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting, like the topic of like men, dude, guys, like whatever you want to say, and the topic of boundaries is super interesting because I feel like at no date, like with men, there's like the threat of violence. Like if you cross boundaries, like some dudes will just start to kick your ass, and there's no like
a check. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, there's like the unspoken thing, but I feel like as like an adult, like men, especially nowadays, when like not that it's not acceptable to like kick each other's asses behind like closed doors, but like assuming like you guys are friends, that's like a skill to have nowadays is to actually like talk and about like those boundaries. So like for me, I feel like that's an interesting like way that you came to that, and like that's one of the curiosities that I have is how certain people come to like how did you know how like why it was important to set boundaries and to like to not have people walk over you. And for me, like my experience was just like dating somebody, so it's like okay, like that can't like last. And it's funny that we talk about like cascading effect, or the cascading effect earlier about that one seemingly innocuous event that actually led you to like, you know, you to like drive home and have the rest of those things happen is that, you know, when I was dating and I was like, I need better like dating boundaries, that came back to like a coworker coming to me at work, and we were friends, and I told him, I said like, you know, Call of Duty just came out, like we should definitely play this weekend. And for me, I meant it, but I didn't really put much urgency in me actually saying like, hey, let's go hang out. Cause like, I feel like a lot of people just like throw out like, hey, let's go do this. And I was definitely one of those people. And today, like I do it way often than I should. And I feel like a prick. I definitely need to work on it. But,
hey, as long as you're self-aware, that's all that matters.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, you're not wrong. But like, I just felt shitty with this particular person, especially because, you know, as a coworker and him and I were cool. And so I was like, okay, like, I know that I said, well, I didn't, let me explain the story. Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. So on the Monday, this is when Modern Warfare came out. On Monday, this coworker came back to me and just straight up said, hey man, do we have a problem? And I was like, well, what the fuck? And so like, for me, like that was
Very
like off guard.
Yeah.
Oh, it was extreme. My back was like up against like the bench top of where the lab station that I was working at. And he came up to me and I was like, chill. It was like 8 a.m. Anyway. So this happened. And so at that point I was like, before then I would have just like cut the suit off. I would have like gone back to Xbox like, dude, this coworker of mine fucking off the charts bonkers.
Yeah.
And I was like,
no job.
yeah, but I was like, wait a minute. I was like, first of all, I did say that I would play with him. And I was like, this could be a learning experience for the both of us. So instead of just doing that, I was like, I actually went up to him, and it sucks because like the reason why boundary setting is just so like, I mean, for me, for me, it was so like enlightening, like how life changing it is. May not be for everybody, because first of all, it sucks. Like the interpersonal conflict and like the confrontation for me, like if I have like a not falling out per se, but if I get into like a kerfuffle or like get chippy with a friend, like I think about it like
nice word drop.
Oh yeah, like for me personally, like I think about it for like at least like the rest of the day, and I'm like, you know, this shit's happening, I have to go deal with it eventually. And so the process of me sitting this friend down, and I was like, I don't want to cut this dude off because this dude's cool, but that was also really weird how he did that to me. So I was like, we both are fucking, you know, we got something to work on. So anyway, my coworker and I like sat down and had a talk about like how it made me feel and how it made him feel. And it was weird because what normally would have been like him walking away saying that dude's a prick and me walking away saying that dude's a nut job, we actually came back and like our friendship was like immediately way better than that if I just said like, sorry man, like I'll try to make it up to you this week, and it would have been like, yeah dude, like you better. You know what I mean? Or like so the whole topic of boundaries, a lot of people think that like they're giving up ground or like they're compromising, but like in my experience, like it strengthens any sort of friendship or like relationship you have with like coworkers or like family members. And I know a lot of people, like the nature of some certain people, they don't allow certain boundaries. Like, you know, certain people attract people who don't have any boundaries, and as soon as you do show boundaries, that's that. But yeah, like, I mean, unless you have any like any other stories about boundaries, I just think boundaries is one of the most like overlooked topic, because I don't think we really learn about that in school unless you know.
No, and I mean, I can't speak like historically either, for just society as a whole kind of pivoting off of that. But I feel like the open discussion of mental health and just well-being in general is kind of changing. Like, I figure, like, I don't know how old your dad is. My dad is 60 on the 61, and
Okay.
definitely I feel like him and his friends did not talk about that shit.
Oh, yeah.
You
My
know,
dad's in his 60s too,
like,
and yeah.
yeah, like, just times were different for sure. But like now, like me and like my closest friends, the people that I truly care about, like I like can set boundaries and just like be truthful with, just like you were with your coworker. It's
Mhm.
like, hey, like, I value you as a person, and I don't want things to be weird between us, but here's how I feel. Let me know how you feel. This is how X affected me. And that shit's, at least in my life, like a lot more common now. And it's
Yep.
good to have that discourse with people.
And I think it's like a survival skill now too, because you know, in our
Mm.
dad's days, like, you weren't like, because when you go home in your free time, like, that person's gone. You know what I mean? Like, you don't get
Yeah.
to like, you know what I mean? Like, the person's out of your life. But like for us, it's like, especially during the pandemic, it's like they're gonna be on Xbox. You're gonna see them on
Yeah.
Twitter. You're still following each other on, you know, on Instagram and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's like a survival skill to be like, either you have all your pent up energy building up, or you like sort of like confront it and diffuse all that energy that would have otherwise, like, because for me personally, like, the reason why I'm such a big like advocate for like self-improvement, which I think that the whole stigma behind like self-improvement is like dwindling, because for me
Yeah.
personally, no matter how many memes are going to be behind like self-improvement, like 10x your life, bro, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
like the 10x shit, but like in terms of like self-improvement, like self-awareness, is that all that like stuff was like dictating my life, like that stuff like affected me at such a high level, to the point where like when I started handling it, I was like, you boys need to start checking out like self-awareness stuff, because like this stuff is insane. Like, I don't know if you felt that
It
way, but
really
like
is.
that's how I felt.
No, yeah, I definitely feel that way. But like, and I'm not saying you are, but like, I try not to push like my shit onto other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way that I feel, like I'll make comments here and there, like, oh, you're drinking for the 6th time this week, huh? Like, man, dude, you're sauced. But like, I still have that shit where it's like I'm reflecting my values on other people, and I shouldn't be doing that.
Mm,
But I try to mean good when I do that stuff. You know what I mean?
right, for
Like,
sure.
yeah.
Because I mean, it's a way she goes nowadays when you like, not to say that you're proving what you did was right, but after you go through the self-awareness journey and then you see people making the same mistakes, I saw myself all the time being like, now's my time to step in and demonstrate my value. But it's like,
Exactly.
if someone did that to me, I would have been like this, like, one ear out the other, number one, and then two, I would have been like, I don't want anything to do with this person because they know better than me, this, that, and the other thing. So there's a
Now, is
weird
that
balance.
previous you or is that current you?
What, that they don't know any better?
Yeah.
Um,
Like if somebody's explaining something to you, like you did XYZ, they've had a similar experience, and they kind of not talk down on you, but give you advice from
I
their
would have
view.
been like, what do you know? Because especially
Yeah.
if I didn't ask, like, I mean, this is kind of a funny story though. Like, when I first started going to therapy, and like, I'm a big advocate for therapy, and like, I mean, we didn't talk about this, so again, like, if you want to talk about therapy, if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to. But
Yeah.
when I first went to therapy, I had a grad student counselor, and like, everything she said, I was like, basically had this immediately like standoffish, you don't know me sort of like, you know, emotional thing. And I feel like that was like a big ego. Like, my ego was, I would say, I mean, I still have an ego. I don't think anyone
Yeah.
can get rid of their ego, but my ego was like massive. And one of the things that I learned, I think it was Dr. K on Healthy Gamer, he said that ego and confidence are two sides of the same coin. So if you're, the lower confidence you have, the bigger your ego is, and the more confidence you have, the smaller your ego is. So, I mean, I think this is like standard issue, common knowledge sort of thing, but the bigger your ego is, like, traditionally, like, the more insecure you are, which is
Yeah.
totally true. Like the more my
Oh,
ego
100%.
got tripped off and the more chippy I got, I was in my most insecure states, like by far. And
No, yeah,
so
and that's like reflecting back on what I said, where like I felt like I had a relatively big ego in high school. I was insecure as fuck. You know, I had
yeah.
things I didn't like about myself, comparing myself to other people, this and that. And yeah, I was definitely super insecure. And as I've gotten more comfortable with myself, I've kind of gotten away from that and gotten more confident for sure.
Yeah, and I think that comes with, in order to have boundaries, you need to be confident, because if you want to like assert a certain amount of space in between you and other people, like that sort of like comes with the chance that they may not like it, and they may dip. And so that's like, I mean, I'm not going to get too in depth because I'm not like at the point where I'm thinking, yeah, especially because I haven't talked to this person, but that comes with like, you know, with my last romantic relationship, like that was one of the reasons why, like, I mean, I'm not going to speak for her, but for me personally, is that like the reason why we didn't make certain decisions was like we didn't know if that person would like leave altogether. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's like the sort of things with boundaries, is that when you actually get confident and you're okay with that person leaving, then you're able to make those boundaries, and maybe they pay off, maybe they don't. So
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's just the funny part about high school in general, with like egos and stuff, because like in high school, actually this is kind of interesting. I mean, maybe you can speak on it, but in high school I was not at all like concerned about my weight. It wasn't until college when I was starting to get insecure about my weight. And so I don't know what to make about that, like, to be completely
I would
honest.
say that means that you were either, because I didn't know you in high school. We reflected on this before, but maybe that had to do with you having good friends who made you feel kind of comfortable at the time, and you didn't really think it was out of place. Because I'm sure that you got fat jokes and stuff, as like any teenage guy would do. Like, you see a weakness and you attack it. You know, it's funny. But yeah, it's just the way she goes. But yeah, that it probably just had to be with, you went to a college where you may not or did not know as many people. So then you were actually able to kind of reflect on yourself a little bit more and be like, hey, this is who I am. And if you're not comfortable with yourself, rather than being like, hey, these are my boys, I've been friends with these guys for X amount of years, I know they're with me through thick and thin. It doesn't matter.
That's
you know?
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird because I feel like, I mean, a lot of people who from Hudson who come on the podcast said the same thing about, you know, Hudson being one of those places that it may not be unique to Hudson. It's just the fact that I've, you know, talked
It's your
to people.
experience.
Right.
Yeah.
But like a lot of people say that, like, if you wanted to think highly of yourself, like I feel like Hudson, in my experience, the only high school I've been to, like, was a very like made everyone pretty humble. But it wasn't like a healthy humble, but it was certainly like everyone knew their place more or less, for better or for worse, like leaving that establishment.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, you learned a lot being there. Obviously, there's not as much diversity as you really want in Hudson, and that's probably the biggest knock on Hudson, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was fortunate to have the diversity growing up in different areas, but like in reality, I still moved back to Hudson for the second time in right before middle school. So I was there for years and years. So I still grew up in the same system and everything, and all the ups and downs that come with living in Hudson and being in that high school.
Yeah. Okay, so when it came to, just to wrap up your experience at OU, do you feel that right now you are like doing all that you can to, like, based off what you felt when you left, do you feel like you're doing all you can to remedy those feelings, or do you feel like that you have closed that chapter, like that story arc is sort of over with?
That story arc's definitely over with. Like, I am kind of a forgive and forget type person, where it definitely stuck with me for a bit. And I felt like I had that label on my back, like I was going to be judged because I left, and I still had friends that were there, and they're like, why did Bryce leave? You know, he's not here. And I was kind of insecure with myself at the time, still at that standpoint, because I hadn't had as much of that self-reflection. But I was just nervous about what other people would think. But now I've gotten to a point where I'm still not perfect. I can't say that this is exactly where I pictured myself, but I definitely made the strides and did a lot of things that 19-year-old Bryce would have been very proud of, you know?
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, the last thing that I want to say then is, and this again might be trivial, but if you were to make, is your perspective on someone making that same decision that you made as an observer this time around? So if you were 19-year-old Bryce, but you were like doing okay, and you saw someone make that same mistake, what sort of judgment would you have like casted upon that person, and what does that change now? Like, were you more forgiving? Has your like level of like forgiveness and acceptance of others changed at all, or has that been pretty static?
Oh, for sure. That has definitely changed. I mean, I literally have a real life example. You know, Kurt, he left OU after the first semester, I believe, like halfway through the second semester. So he left the school, and we were all kind of like, what the fuck? Because he had a similar aha moment where he went home for a weekend, kind of reevaluated everything that was going on at OU. I'm not going to speak on anything for Kurt. That's all his business. But he did the same thing. And I wasn't very judgmental because he's one of my best friends, but it was more so of like, why didn't you bring me in on it? But at the end of the day, that's none of my business. And he's as comfortable sharing as much as he wants to, you know?
Right.
Like, that wasn't my judgment to make in the first place. So I've definitely changed as a person where now, if something like that happened, when a big thing happens with somebody and they tell me XYZ, I'm not much of a person to ask questions because they're telling me that amount of information for a reason. You know, if they want to unload and give me the whole story, cool. If they want to give me 2 or 3 pieces, like, I'll respect that that's all that they want to say, all that they're comfortable saying, and just kind of move on from there.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's an interesting. Yeah, because I feel like, again, like roping back to like who our parents were, is that if someone were to do something that, like, I don't know what the right verb is, someone who like made them like sort of dip out, like go on their own like intermission while like the play was still going for everyone normal. I feel like, not to say that my parents think this way, but I feel like I can give them a higher percentage chance of them giving that person label that they'll have forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that makes any sense.
Sure.
Like, oh, that person dropped out of high school and they did this like forever. And it seems like so like not fatalistic, but like permanent. And then for us, like, I feel like, I mean, again, it could be a product of us like staying up to date with each other more often, but I feel like nobody is static like that. Like, everyone has like, not to say that everyone is the same, but like everyone goes through certain things to the point where like everyone has like their redemption arcs, or they're so like not public about it, but like maybe I'll just give you like, I'll just ask you, like, what do you think is do you think people in general are more likely to open up about these things and that's why we don't give them labels? Or do you think that it's a product of like a greater like sense of acceptance that we have for other people in this generation?
I would say it's honestly kind of a healthy balance of both, where folks are definitely more open and accepting of differences, conflicts, stuff like that. And also, people are, this is obviously 100% biased and pertaining to me and my experiences, but I feel like people are more open to revealing things about themselves and talking about their emotions, kind of like what we touched on earlier, where people are just more open to that stuff. So where I would have called somebody like nasty things or labeled them this back in high school, like, even from high school to now, where I'm really not that far removed from it, 8 years, it's times have definitely changed a shitload. So much has happened since then.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, it's because with like cancel culture, like my biggest disconnect, and like you can like let me know what you think of cancel culture, but I think like the biggest thing about cancel culture is like the level of self-compassion you have for yourself. If you, because like I know like the stuff that I've been through, I'm like, I might have gone to like very quickly, like, you know, not discarding, but dismissing certain people after like one or two actions very quickly in high school or in college. Like I was like, oh, that person's like a, you know, this, that, and the other. But now it would have been like, I don't know if that really describes a, you know, person. Like we're gonna need some more information on that. Like for me now, it's like 99% of people, and maybe this is like overly compassion or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if it's compassion, but like I feel like 99% of people shouldn't like actually be like canceled for like the things that they say. And to be honest, like that's not really like a hot take at all, because like some of the stuff that people get canceled for today is like totally over the top and like garbage. But I feel like
I agree with that for sure. Yeah.
And so I feel like what the biggest like antidote to that is just fucking up one time massively in your own life, and then suddenly like everything is just like, oh, like this is just what life is. So like I don't know if you have like a particular
spotlight's on you, you know, like the turns of tables or whatever Michael Scott says, you know, like it's now you're the fucking one that. But I mean, obviously I don't think that nobody should be canceled. There's horrible shit that's happened, but for the most part, like I hate to be like this person, but most of the cancel culture stuff that you see is with like celebrities. And I hate talking about celebrities and stuff, but like a lot of that stuff just, if for me, there's kind of like a statute of limitations on things where like if something happened, even for me, like I'm not going to excuse myself for being an asshole, saying stupid shit 4 years ago, but like I can also say, hey, that was 4 years ago. Right. I'm a different person now. And if somebody has a genuine apology for what they do, like, I don't know. I feel like they should be kind of more accepted, you know? Like, if you admit, like, it takes a lot of guts to admit you fucked up.
Facts.
For sure. Like, there's some people that will just hold on to, like, no, I didn't do that, X, Y. You know what I mean? Like, no, that's not me. You got the wrong guy. But, like, if you were actually like, yeah, I was that dude, and I hate that person and everything that happened, that doesn't mean that everybody should just accept them, but it should mean that, like, in my opinion, they showed vulnerability, who they were, they know that they fucked up, and if their actions follow suit, then I'll respect people, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like that's like anything beyond that is totally like you have like a selfish reason behind if you want anything more out of that. Because that's if you're here to like balance the scales and to be like, is this person like reformed? Like, are they not acting like this anymore in the future? Is this affecting like their work that they do now? And that's if that's really all you care about, then that's what you just described should be it. But a lot of people now are like they're coming for like blood, like they want more, like they want you to be deplatformed because like you are like personally like. So that's the stuff that I'm like, you need to fuck up at least.
That's the double-edged sword of like social media and stuff. It's just like there's a lot of good and fun, lighthearted stuff that can happen, but then there's also like almost every day if you pull up Twitter, like one of the trending topics is like cancel X, like whoever. I hate saying XYZ. I keep fucking saying that, but like stop J.K. Rowling. I'm not standing for any of the shit. She's just a fucking example because she's someone semi-recent that's been in the news who's like canceled, and people are like, hey, you're kind of a shitty person. But it's almost every day where you see stuff like that, and everybody's under a microscope, magnifying glass. People are looking for any breadcrumb of any fucking mistake you've ever made. And just because you're a major celebrity, doing good for yourself, on the cover of magazines, like, doesn't mean that you're not just a regular person. Like, one of my brother's best friends is Brian Winters, who's in the NFL, and he's one of those people where, like, just hanging out with him is wild, because you would think, like, having literally millions of dollars, it would all go to his head, but he's just the same person, and he's just a human, you know? He fucks up and he does shit that, like, I don't want to say the stories of shit that I know, but like he's still an average funny dude, you know? Like shit happens, and like it's just funny, you know?
Yeah, no, I hear you. And so I feel like my biggest like my biggest resentment towards that is the fact that like all it's doing is limiting the amount of stuff that we can talk about that is normal stuff. Because like you know, like especially in terms of just like acceptable opinion, it's like what the fuck does that even mean? And so like I don't like that so I mean, I try my best to like have this podcast be as like an oasis to like anti-cancel culture, cancel culture. But it's like even now, it's like I have to frame the discussions and say certain things because like even like even if what I say, like, let me give a good example. Like if I have a certain, like if I had an American flag like on my wall, that's not enough for anyone to lay claim to say that I'm like blatantly racist. But nowadays it's like if someone wants to be like, okay, well, like there's an American flag, like there's like a slippery slope where it's like probably this. So if I have a certain opinion that may be like less than like typical, I'll say, like if it's not like mainstream, like if I saw, okay, so if someone said, perfect example, and this is not, I'm not saying that I believe this or not, but if someone said like I want very strict like immigration policies, if you say that now on Twitter, it's like, okay, well, if you say you have very strict immigration policies, then that probably means you're a Republican. If you're a Republican, that probably means you're racist. So it's like there's like the slippery slope where it's like you have to sort of like plug all of the possible like slippery slope entrances to like where like, you know what I mean? So it's like it's not about saying blatantly off the charts outrageous shit. It's about like did you hear this certain, that's like the intention is completely gone. So speaking of intention, that's what I want to say is that talking about conspiracies now, because I feel like conspiracies and the talking about conspiracies totally got ruined with QAnon. Because if you want to talk about any conspiracies, now it's like, do you believe in QAnon? Tell me you're a Nazi without actually telling me you're a Nazi. It's like, dude, it's like, what the fuck is going on? So anyway, in terms of conspiracies, like just to have like fun, like especially with the alien thing going on, I want to hear about your take. Everything going on with aliens. What's your take on talking about conspiracies?
So with people bringing up conspiracies, I think it's definitely a tightrope. Like you were just saying with social media, like if you like something on immigration, that avalanche starts to happen. So with conspiracies, I think that's kind of a keep it to yourself type thing, unless you have like I don't know what people call like a Finsta or whatever, like where you have kind of like an anonymous personality on social media that like just you and your close friends have. That's more of like a safe space for it. But yeah, I mean, I talk about this stuff with like my close friends, and like I know who I can talk to things about, who won't judge me if I'm like, yo, I read something, and like break out the tinfoil hats. Like I'm probably crazy for even thinking this could be a thing, where like I'm deep in, used to be way more deep into conspiracy theories, and like went down the rabbit hole and like told myself like, yo, I shouldn't be reading this stuff. Like it's stupid and rotting my brain. This is like years ago, well before QAnon and stuff. Excuse me. But yeah, I feel like that should be a up to your own discretion type thing, because your image on social media isn't just your friends or whatever type of account you have. Now it's actually included in like the business world, and like there's so many more repercussions for things that are out there attached to your name and likes, where you need to be careful the stuff that's going out there. So when I was younger, I would have definitely tweeted like, oh yeah, like aliens exist. If you don't think so, you're this. And I still can hold on to those thoughts, but I just don't publicly announce them anymore, because I'm, I guess, past that phase of my life, and there's still people who are there, and I'm not going to knock people who are like that. Like I still follow a few conspiracy accounts just to see what people think these days, and like I not frequent, I'll check up every now and then on like r-conspiracy and stuff, which that subreddit has absolutely gone to shit in my opinion. And I have a conspiracy about that. Let me bring it up.
Oh shit!
But I feel like it's kind of like where the term conspiracy theorist was coined from.
Wasn't it a CIA thing?
Yeah, it's a CIA thing where it was made. Yeah, it was made to discredit people with opposition thought process.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken, I'll get checked if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it came up around I think like the Bay of Pigs. And that type of timeline, And when there was just some shady black ops type stuff going on and people were voicing their opinions, which were relatively on par, they would just get knocked as conspiracy theorists. And it just became a term where like the term conspiracy like theorist is just kind of like, it doesn't mean that you necessarily believe this stuff. It's just that you're open to it and a different view of what's painted as reality from whether it be media, basically just media.
Right.
And it just is made to discredit different thinking. Now, does that mean every conspiracy theory is right? No. There's people that are fucking batshit crazy out there who are truly fucking themselves up with some of these thoughts that they have. Yeah. But that's their own issue, you know? But like in general, I feel like most conspiracy theorists like are pretty average people. Like I definitely am kind of weird. I have my quirks and stuff, but like I'd like to think of a kind of normal dude, you know, and I believe in stuff and I challenge people's thought process and I'm like, why do you believe this? Like, just because you were told that, like, what happened if this happened? You know what I mean? Like, there's so much more deeper levels than why do you just believe what you're told, you know?
For sure. And like, my biggest issue with conspiracy theorists is that like, because when someone plants like, oh, are you a conspiracy theorist? It's like, is a conspiracy theorist someone who just blatantly believes every conspiracy? Because you know what I mean? It's like, I don't feel like anyone is a conspiracy. Like, I don't think those people exist. You know what I mean?
No,
like
I don't think they do either. Even like the people who are like so deep in the rabbit hole, you can't even see their feet anymore.
Yeah.
Like that just doesn't really exist. But when you hear the term conspiracy theorist, you think of somebody crazy. Even me.
Yeah.
It's like so ingrained in our society where you're
social
like
social engineering, dude. It's wild.
It is. It's like a form of like desensitization. I think that's wrong. But just kind of like that where you're getting people to a point of thinking where it's almost second nature to just be like, oh yeah, that person's crazy, you know?
Right. And so I just think it's wild because if, you know, also because again, like if you want to say someone's a conspiracy theorist, you have that threat of social isolation tied to it. So someone's like, oh, that person's a conspiracy theorist, but you know better too. It's like, well, now you have to walk on eggshells and now you have to sort of navigate in a very careful way because again, like this is just like, you know, someone again, like the whole reason why conspiracy theorists is fucked up is because like if you want to say, you know, let me just think of something that's like very tame, like aliens. You can say like aliens existed. Like if someone says, has a question about like, you know, this whole Roswell thing, like this one dude who was there said that, you know, these government agents said that they need to post like a weather balloon debris and say that it's a weather balloon. But nowadays it's like all this stuff is like coming out like from actual people from the Pentagon to send like, you know, Roswell was like a genuine incident where like, you know, so this crash landing, like all these, you know, I mean, actually, I'm not sure that that's correct, but I'm pretty sure that's what's been coming out recently with this UAP thing. And so, but it's like you ask a question like that and then it's just a question about what was officially said. Just asking that one question about that one aspect ropes you into that category and suddenly you're just like have like this grand dissenting opinion about like mainstream and now like, you know what I mean? So it's like that part like pisses me off because again, going back to like, actually we didn't talk about this yet, but like scientific advancement, Nobel Prizes, stuff that pushes science forward is always fringe science. It's always like, because science isn't, you know, it's not a majority believing something. It's always one person going on their own little path and discovering this one thing. And so I feel like the social engineering has got the American public and the world at large by the balls because like this is just like it works. Because even on us, like we know how it works, but we're still like we just talk about it.
I'm still just so ingrained where like this is where it gets into like other conspiracy about the UAP shit, and this is like disclaimer on all this stuff. These are just my opinions, and it's just thoughts. I don't even believe them. I told you before, I literally have alien tattooed on my arm. I'm cool with conspiracy theories. I have fun with them. I think it's cool to just kind of expand your mind and think that there's more to reality that there is. Yes. But now not necessarily the thinking thought process, more of just like my mind is still open where the Pentagon and the Navy, all these folks are like so open about it. This is where I'm going to turn the page on you, is like them being so open now almost makes me not believe it, because which is weird, because like past Bryce would be like punching me, socking me in the face for saying this shit, because like I've always been a believer. I think it's badass. 6 years old watching Men in Black on the TV, mouthing the words. Like I've been obsessed with aliens, other beings that could be out there since the beginning of like Bryce.
Right.
And now I'm just becoming like skeptical with stuff, because it's like it's so open. Like I feel like there's got to be something for us to gain to be releasing this info.
Us, as like the American people, the government,
humanity. Like there's got to be like something like to gain, whether it's like extraterrestrial beings actually exist, and this is a way of desensitizing the population. We've been doing this through movies of Aliens, the movie Arrival, things like that, where it's like first contact is being made, and you have all those breadcrumbs that come up and get people kind of like on par with the idea. But then you also have like the flip side, where it's like, why right now? Why are they telling us right now? Unless a huge bubble's about to burst, like what do they gain from telling people this? Do they have ulterior motives? Is this just Russia, China, another entity that we just don't even know about, or spying on us, and like we're catching these things? Because like there's just, I could go into so much depth of it, of like, for our cameras to be able to pick up these things that are moving, like there's just so many weird things where like if you think it's like alien technology, they'd be able to bypass us. If they're supposedly well advanced in the future, we shouldn't be seeing them, you know? Like that's like the tale of how it goes. But like there's got to be something to gain from this, whether it's we already have the technology, we've reversed engineered it, we've had a major breakthrough in science and beings, but like I think there's got to be more to it that we just don't know yet. So like I'm a conspiracy theorist of the conspiracy that's coming on, that's not a conspiracy anymore, because it's being disclosed by the US government. And the weird thing is also like, why is it happening so much in the US compared to other countries? Like you have, I believe it was like within the last 2-3 years, there's like lights in the sky in Brazil. Like it's still happening in other countries, but the prominence that it's happening in America being so much higher than the rest of the world is kind of sus.
That's an interesting
where it's
take.
like, isn't it? Because like it's once again, I don't necessarily wholeheartedly believe this whatsoever. Like still want to be a believer, have fun with it, but I just always keep my mind open, or try to, per se, to just different ideas. And now it's like, why right now? Why are we knowing right now? There's got to be something to gain, or else we wouldn't know. Okay. You know?
Wait, can we talk about it? Is that a cool?
Of course. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Dig deep into it. Ask questions.
Okay. Whatever. So I'll just frame it from first of all, I mean, again, this is a discussion between conspiracy theorists who are like being so open-minded. We're about to like scaffold a discussion about it. This is not some anyway.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do justice to this. All right.
Cool.
So the first thing is that I'm totally with you in the fact that like suspect that just the American government seems like that. But I will say that I am not too involved in like foreign countries UFO shits, because my main sources are r/UFOs, r/aliens, r/conspiracy.
I'm a part of all those communities.
And r/high strangeness. So like the only government voice that I hear from is the US. And in terms of like foreign states, I think the only other information I know is that China is using AI to track UFOs. That's as of like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And
I actually didn't see that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's sick. Like it's an official, like that's what they're doing. And I think the Chinese government only has one official UFO sighting. I can pull up because I was just looking at this article, but So the Chinese government has acknowledged one. And then I don't know, like if you go, there's this dude, I think his name is Paul Stonehill. I don't know what his background is, but he has an AMA on r/aliens. And if you go on his YouTube channel, he talks about all of Russians' UFO history. So there's like this lake in Siberia where like there was this conspiracy about a Russian submarine like running into like humanoids in like the one of the deepest lakes in the
yeah. I've seen that.
And so this is sort of stuff where like 8 or 10 years ago in high school. I mean, I don't know, it's definitely not been 10 years. But has it been? Dude, it hasn't been 10 years since high school. Yo,
if you're talking like freshman, sophomore year shit.
Freshman year.
Yeah.
That's weird. Anyway,
Getting
I would have
old.
been like, this is like a cool fan fiction. But like now it would have been like, there's like a good 5 or 10% of me that like, is totally willing to entertain this. And when I say entertain, I mean like talk about, because again, like a lot of people like when they want to pin conspiracy people on conspiracy theorists on people, they want to say like, well, if you're going to talk about, Oklahoma City bombing, like you are an immediate believer of this, that, and the other thing. But it's like,
exactly,
just entertaining it and talking about it is not illegal. That's not.
No,
that's,
literally,
even believing it is not illegal. First of all, I'm gonna make that point.
That's a good note as well. Yeah, anybody can believe whatever they want, whether people think you're actually crazy or not. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree too. It's like there is that negative stigma. Like, I don't really. I stopped getting very hip to conspiracy theories. Like after all, like the Sandy Hook, Las Vegas shooter stuff happened. Like that's when I kind of fell off because I was like, I just didn't really like my headspace being in that, and I kind of became more of a negative person. Not even that I even entertained those ideas, but just reading that content, because I keep my mind open to stuff and like just do research for both sides, whether it's absolute. You can read the first line and be like, this is horse shit. It's just entertaining, it's just keeping my mind occupied and stuff. I always like reading something.
Of course.
And it's just, like sometimes even if like you have that discussion with people, you're just marked as just being wild and like crazy. But it's like, why not just talk about shit? Even if you are just bullshitting in a conversation like this, like me and you both are like not sticking hard and true to like anything we say, but it's like, it's cool to just talk about stuff like this, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, of course. And actually, before I go on, is the funny thing about me, like I never really believed in crisis actors because I was like, where would first of all, if you're hiring some normie just to be in a mass shooting, it's like they would have to tell somebody. Like you're not gonna.
It's like, their family doesn't remember them. Like, that's Susan. That's Susan.
Exactly.
Like you gotta shut up every person who's ever met that person. It's like that's where crisis actors are like, oh shit, I don't know about that. But
yeah, for minimum wage, you're gonna never tell anyone ever again. Like,
like unless you're gonna murder everybody, like good luck keeping everybody's trap shut.
Exactly. But when I was at the Fort Lauderdale shooting, just for fun, 2 months later, I searched Fort Lauderdale crisis actors, and there were like not hundreds, but there were like tens of videos of being like, this is fake blood, this is a crisis actor. And I was like,
I guarantee you that you've been perceived as a crisis actor.
Because there are pictures of me running on the tarmac.
I know. There's literally pictures of you, dude. People are probably like, look at this fucking guy. I saw him at like level 3 of the World Trade Center 2001, even though you would have been like fucking 6 years old, But yeah, dude, there's people that are really into that shit. But I don't doubt that you might be a crisis actor for all I know, dude. This is all front.
Yeah, you met me after that, dude.
Yeah, dude. That's post shooting, dude. That's all the CK I know.
They actually cloned me afterwards. This is
yeah, dude. You're like Gucci Mane.
So going back to the whole UFO shit. So, I personally don't think it's Russian or Chinese from a scientific standpoint.
Fair,
because I mean, I always rope it back to the SR-71 by Skunk Works, Lockheed. They made it, and the first test flight of the SR-71 was like in 61 or 62, and maybe it was in.
Side note: did you see that supersonic flight is coming back for regular passengers?
By who?
I think. Don't quote me. It was either American or United. I feel like they said by 2030 they're gonna have 3 to 5 aircrafts that are going to be able to do it.
That's insane.
Like they're starting to get like the regulations like thumbs up, which is kind of cool.
That's so sick.
Like you could go from like New York to London, and I think it was like 2 hours, 3 hours, something. It like cuts the time in half.
Because I know the SR-71 takes like an hour and a half to get to coast, which is like bonkers. And also, if taking a right-hand turn in an SR-71 takes like half the state of Ohio or something. Anyway,
damn, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, without people feeling like the G-force and like having like your grandma in row 17 like puking her guts out. Like you got to think about the common man. Yeah, I haven't even thought about that. That's wild.
Yeah. So anyway,
but yeah, go on. That's the technology that we have.
Yeah, so like, dude, the SR-71 in the 60s, thinking about like what was going on in the 60s, that's like an alien spaceship. But anyway, to have, because there was Luis Elizondo of the Pentagon, and again, I have to make sure that anyone who listens to this conversation goes and does their own research. But there was a crash in Italy in 1933 where Mussolini, I guess, shipped off parts of this crash to other heads of the government. This is from the Pentagon brought this up. And I don't know. And again, I say that people need to do their own research because I got that information from some dude who was summarizing a podcast with that guy there. So again, I need to just make that disclaimer because again, like as sick as that sounds, that was my reading comprehension skills is like that of a packing peanut. Another disclaimer. So there's that. But
this is all just theorized shit that like we hearsay, he said, she said, stuff that we've gotten through the grapevine over time.
Exactly. And so based off of something from the 1930s, and again, if that's the same sort of thing we're seeing today, the Russians and the Chinese would have displayed this in some other format. And I don't think it was some breakaway Nazi scientist thing because this was like 12 years before the end of 45. So it's like, or before the end of World War II. So like, I don't think it's like the Nazis in Antarctica. And
now,
so,
how do you feel about Werner von Braun? I think his name is.
Oh yeah,
being former Nazi scientist who started or helped greatly with NASA. Our exploration of space. There's a lot of deep shit that we can go into, which we could save another time, whatever, if we want. But there's some crazy shit out there that's legit.
And you know what's funny is that you bring up Werner von Braun in Operation Paperclip, which used to be a conspiracy. And now it's basically open knowledge.
Declassified, yeah.
You know what's funny is that Harry Truman, I'm pretty sure he said when they were doing this, I forget what it was called, the original proposal, but he said if there were any, because it was originally just for German scientists, and he said that if there are any sort of Nazi affiliations, if they still have Nazi beliefs, you're not allowed to accept them. So I think like the first 760, maybe it was less than that, they did background checks and they were presented to them or to the I don't know if it was Harry Truman himself, but someone who was behind that program, and none of them passed it because all of them were like quoted as like ardent Nazis, and then they had to go through and they had to scrub their resumes of all their Nazi affiliations, and of course they all brought them here. And it is kind of spooky that like and people like don't want to, I mean, people who do, I don't know if they don't want to talk about it. I feel like people don't really know, but like NASA was literally not run by Nazis, but like the Nazi influence and maybe a large part of why we got to the moon was due to the rocket scientists that came from Operation Paperclip, which is
100%, yeah. And I mean that's just going off of like, I don't even want to disclaim this. I do not stand for any Nazis whatsoever. I'm Jewish. They're bad. But like at the time, historically, they were doing so much more testing than what was allowed anywhere else in the world because they had human experimentation, essentially no laws. They were like a governless place where they actually figured out a lot of shit scientifically that we use today, which is batshit crazy and fucked up, but it's the reality of the way things are, like they were smart with what they were doing. They figured out a lot of shit before other people. And they just did what they did in evil, but very advanced way.
Yeah. I don't know if you know, I mean, I'm sure you know this, but if people who are listening, if you want to go down a deeper rabbit hole, go and look into how much of the entire Nazi Party was led by like occult stuff. Like, have you heard about this?
I've
Like
not.
the whole Aryan supremacy was based off of like occult beliefs about like the
Really?
master race. Like, yeah, so like if you wanted to join the SS, you had to prove German blood back to like 1750. Like you lived in Germany since 1750.
Mhm.
And
I never knew that.
yeah, dude, it's insane because like these were like I don't know what you would want to call them, but like they had like astrologers. Jesus, they had astrologers and like the Nazi Party, like people like higher ups in the party would like regularly consult with like astrologers. And so the belief of like Aryan supremacy is that once you like boil down to like the perfect Aryan, like you would have superpowers. Like that was like it. It was like the pursuit of like the perfect human being because you would have superpowers.
Okay.
It wasn't just like
chasing the dragon type thing where like they want the perfect person. Like it's gonna be just Goku at the end of it.
yeah, like a little blonde hair, blue eyes Goku.
Yeah, they're just looking for Goku at the end of it, dude.
And so anyway, it's very interesting if you want to go and look into like occult history of Nazis. But anyway, Unit 731 in Japan. I don't know if we ever got scientists from Japan, but I'm pretty sure we like spared jailing and like executing like in a not a legal way. What's the word? Like in a what do they call it? Something punishment,
like
capital punishment.
Oh, yeah, where somebody's kind of like pardoned from something where they're supposed to get this penalty, but then it's lessened. You know?
Yeah. So like the Unit 731 was in Japan, and they did like atrocious human experimentation, like on like pregnant women and just like twins, like stuff that would totally never pass, like not FDA, but like HIPAA and all that stuff. You know
like
what I mean?
Human rights stuff. Yeah.
There we go, human rights.
Yeah,
FDA. And so yeah, like and for an exchange in their data, I'm pretty sure it was like we'll take your data and all the fuck shit that you learned, you know. So anyway, that was also like part of it. But going back to UFOs and UAPs, is that basically my three ideas boil down to they're like an aquatic ancestor that like evolved alongside us, because it's wild, because if you want to like live in the Marianas Trench, you have to survive insane pressures. There's no light down there.
Yeah, it's like why we can't even really put submarines like further down than like a mile, or I don't know the depths, but like literally shit will get crushed.
Yeah, like I think like the max you can be down there is like a minute, even with like the most like suited up, you know, submarines. And then like, you know, the ocean as such is like barely explored. Like I think it's like in the single, like the teen percentage of it, how much of it is explored. Barely any of it is mapped, although I'm pretty sure they're working on mapping it using like some sort of software nowadays, but like that mapping process isn't even done. So some aquatic ancestor who evolved with us. What the issue with underwater is that you don't have any open flames. You can't use like heat source, which is very interesting, because if you can like, because as far as we know, like you need that to like evolve. So maybe that isn't a step. Because I mean, like for metallurgy and stuff, and to cook food. Otherwise, it could just be like physical aliens from some other planet, and like they skirted over here, or, which I think is like one of the most like alluring theories that like I feel like is not at all like, not that it's not openly discarded, but the fact that it's so entertained by these people in like the Pentagon and the government makes me believe that it's true, is like the interdimensional aspects of it. Like whatever these things are, like people that we just can't see and share space with us. So I'm curious about like any of those. Like, do you believe that it could be Russian or Chinese, or are you pretty certain that it is alien? And if it is alien, where of those like three or other ones do you closely align with?
I don't have any true tale type thing like that I stick by. I've literally done research on all of those, and they're all plausible to me. I'm the type of person where like I need to see hard evidence, not just a blurry black and white spacecraft filmed from a naval ship. even that stuff I'm skeptical of, because I feel like to be a proper good conspiracy theorist, you should question even like the hard evidence stuff that people have, because like how can it be faked? Just to kind of check it, and there's really no way of ever knowing that stuff. But the theory that I heard of for like UAPs and all the shit that's going on with like just these crafts that we're openly acknowledging now in the news, I don't. Once again, I don't necessarily believe this, but what I thought would be kind of cool and was kind of those like, shit, like that's kind of wild, of like, if it's like lost human civilization type thing, kind of like humans misplaced in time, whether that's like Atlantis, Egypt, all of these like civilized Mayans, like who were essentially wiped off the face of the earth without much trace, like I'm sure it's even well fucking further back than that than we would even know, if it's this theory, of course. But that's just one that I've thought is kind of cool and like done more research on, and like kind of just recently like stumbled upon, and I was like, that's pretty badass. I've never thought about that being like, instead of being like an extraterrestrial being, it's us. Like the whole time, like I think that there's been movies. Have you seen Arrival? Was that Arrival?
Arrival was Humans from the Future, yeah.
Okay, so like I kind of like, that's interesting, because I saw that as a movie when I saw that, and I didn't even entertain the idea, kind of like the desensitized situation. But like when I read more about it, I was like, oh, that's kind of like an interesting fact, and I didn't even really put two and two together until now. But that's something that I don't believe, but recently I've kind of had like that's a plausible thing. Like I don't believe it and hold it to the day I die. Like, yeah, it's us. But it's just a badass thought. That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally with you in the fact that like there's cool stuff that like if I want to like I want to root for a sports team, I want to root for like a like an answer, that would be one of the coolest things ever, because it would be like, what would that say about the history of us that like has been wiped away? Like for me personally, like I don't believe that aliens built the pyramid. I mean, I say I don't believe it. Like I'm gonna assume that humans built it, because you know, obviously there's an evidence for the contrary. But you know, as per like the true original like utility of like the pyramids, like personally, like whether or not, I mean, I don't necessarily believe that it was built as a tomb, mostly because I haven't done any research. So it's like, and what it looks like, even if you looked like the inside of like the pyramid, it's like, how is this just a tomb? Like I don't know, it's just like, it's just weird. It's just like, how is this
if they've done, obviously, like Egypt and other countries have explored that stuff, you know. It's not like ooh, this is really spooky stuff, let's not open this sarcophagus. Like, no, they've explored that shit, they know what's in there. But like what's theorized, and like I've done extensive research on the pyramids and everything, and I don't necessarily believe it's like ancient aliens or anything either, but I keep my mind open to stuff, and that's just another topic I think is fun. I actually have like some Egyptian stuff upstairs, because like it's like one of like my like favorite topics, and I've always wanted to go. But like they like map it out with like sonar and stuff, and like there's like tunnels, channels, stuff that's like actually in there. And it's definitely not just a tomb. Like I don't think it was ever meant just to be a tomb. Like it's just kind of one of those blanket things where it's like, if we just tell you this, like that's cool. Just shut the fuck up. Although people still ask questions always, and people are nosy as fuck. If you tell anybody that, oh, I've got this information, but you can't know it, everybody's gonna be like, ooh, what is that? You know, like that's like how people are. So like if you just say like, yeah, it's a tomb, people will be like 80% of people will be like, oh, okay, that's a good enough explanation.
That's believable too, because it's like, oh, it's Egyptians.
It is still, and it could be a tomb for all we know.
Right.
But like, that'll shut most people the fuck up, and they'll be like, that's good enough for me, you know. But then there's gonna be that are like, why would it just be a tomb like us? You know, it's like this is massive. Like, although they were like revered as God, this and that, it's like, why? That's like a pretty, not saying I wouldn't want a pyramid built for me when I'm dead, because that's badass, you know? But like, there's just a lot more that goes into the pyramids, like their geographic location of like, I don't know if it's just like the pyramids of Giza, or like, this is me like, once again, just piecing random shit I've heard, but it's like multiple of the same sculptures or structures rather that are like found around the world, like their pinpoint geographic location equates to the speed of light. Like the mathematical
base perimeter of the Great Pyramid equals this, like 99.9% the speed of light in inches or something like that.
Yeah, and it's like there's just like so much of that stuff where it's like okay, one thing that's a coincidence, but like when they start like pancake stacking on top of one another, it's like it's just weird. I don't 100% lean any way, but it's just like there's so much information that's there that it's like it's hard not to question it, in my opinion. Most people will even listen to this and they'll be like, I don't give a fuck about this. This doesn't affect my life. You know, I don't give a shit. But it's just cool. To me, it's just interesting how like there's so much stuff that's just like potentially not a coincidence that it's just it's wild. It really is.
And this is one of the things, and I swear I'll rope it back to UAPs, but I want before I say my piece on Egypt, I want to say that this is also one of the reasons why I don't like r. I mean, you probably have a completely different reason why you don't like r/conspiracy anymore, but for me personally is that I don't like r/conspiracy anymore because you always have some like fucker named like Occam's Razor Fan 21 who comes in with the most like mundane answer. He's like, you guys don't really have evidence for that. It really is probably just this, and it's just like the most mundane answer. And the reason why I don't like that is because we're in a conspiracy subreddit and we're obviously here to have fun and just to like speculate and like, you know, pontificate over like fun things that could be the reason why. And so the reason why it's like I don't like, because when you talk about conspiracies, this isn't like some summit for the American Chemical Society where you're trying to be empirical about everything. It's like you are literally shooting the shit with some strangers about aliens in Egypt. So when you come here, it's just like
some people probably have like some THC or some sort of something in their body, or you could just be dead sober and just inquisitive. But it's just random people that are like, "Yo, like this is wild, huh?" And they're like, "Yeah, that is wild." And that's just kind of how it goes. But like for me personally, like with like r-conspiracy, if anybody's listening is like follower or just checking it out now, like historically it used to be a lot more of what we just talked about, like just like random people shooting the shit and being like, yo, this is kind of wild, like I found this picture or like this old video or this person who used to be like the Department of Defense said this. And it used to just be like more like fun loving, in my opinion, until I referenced it, started getting into that like Sandy Hook, Las Vegas shooter type situation stuff where like not those per se, but like it really started going down a different path of like blaming subsets of groups, and like people kind of compartmentalized their feelings on different situations and like placed it on something specific, like, oh, that's just New World Order or whatever they want to call it.
Okay.
And excuse me, it just lost a lot of like the fun loving stuff, which is what I liked about it. Was just like I would just get on late night. I don't think I've ever been on r-conspiracy like before 11 p.m. You know, I'm already like a little bit delirious from like sleep deprivation, like long day, so be it. And that's how they get you, you know, because like some stuff I'll be like, oh shit, like Project Bluebeam, I don't know if you're familiar, and then like I read it like the next day and I'm like, what? You know, like does that hold any weight whatsoever? It's like it was just more for like myself, but like a lot of the stuff is just it's lost its fun. But to be fair, I haven't been on it religiously or checking it as much, so it could be cool. But every time that I check it, there's still a lot of BS that I have to sift through before I actually read a thread that I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool and interesting. Like a lot of it's just like politicized, and like I feel even people that are in the subreddit thread, of course there's a conspiracy with the r-conspiracy thread. But, like people in the comments are like, there's like basically like the CIA coined conspiracy theorist term of like people being crazy, where like they're intentionally spilling out such batshit crazy conspiracies and flooding r-conspiracy with it, that like you read it and you're like, this is all bogus, rather than just being like, oh, like I used to read stuff consistently and be able to scroll for like an hour or two and be like, oh, this is wild, you know, and like fall into the rabbit hole and like have fun with different ideologies and ideas shit. But yeah, now it's just really it's just too much for me, really.
Yeah.
Or maybe I've changed as a person. It could be the same, but I just don't fuck with it as much anymore.
Yeah. No, I can definitely see that. And I see a lot of like Facebook tier memes and like videos that are obviously not real at all. It's where you can't even like delude yourself to disbelieve it for a second. You're like, dude, where did you get this shit from? It's like,
see, that's what I'm saying though, or that's what like the frequent people are saying of like, it seems like they're feeding in so much bullshit, unless there's just more, maybe it's like under a bigger audience base now. And now there's like more people of different viewpoints who are just trying to get like the most upvoted, like, whoa, this is so wild. Like this whale sound that we heard in New Zealand is actually like the Kraken, and like it's like wild shit that it's like, it's tough to sift through that stuff, you know?
Yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah, maybe it's because like our standards are higher, but there are some conspiracies like I'm still like, there are a lot of people in our such conspiracy that believe in like Bigfoot, but to me Bigfoot seems like one of those, like if you talk about Bigfoot, like you're here to like discredit yourself, because I'm like, Bigfoot, I feel like you would have to see, that's when like the prick in me comes out, because I'm like, it's fucking Bigfoot. Someone would have taken a picture, because it's different with like with UFO, because like it's in the sky, it's super far away, super grainy picture. If you're like so amazed, it's like if it's Bigfoot, you're gonna take a fucking picture. I don't know. It's how I see it. Like,
yeah, that's like every conspiracy theory comes down to like, why don't you get a picture of it? Everybody's got a very high quality camera in their pocket. Yeah. Where's the picture? Bigfoot, I don't believe in, but I've like fucked with the idea because the community is so great that it's.
Is there a Bigfoot community?
Oh yeah, dude.
Oh, okay. Well, you might need to show me, because I can change my mind. Who knows?
No. I'm not trying to change your mind into believing Bigfoot whatsoever.
Okay.
I'll just preface it by saying there's a hilarious community, and it's cool to see those people and how excited they are about it. But I don't believe it per se at all. Okay. But I have seen what has been told as proof of Bigfoot.
And
I will tell you. My brother and one of his buddies were driving to the Walmart in Streetsboro. They took that side road where it's not like Little Tykes. No, that's back in Hudson. It's like the road where like you keep going up straight. Target's going to be on your right. You turn left, you plop out right by the Sheets. That back road, there's like a little park back there and stuff. Yeah. They were on that road. My brother, big dude, he's like 6'4". Dude he's with, even bigger, massive. They were driving late at night, 100% sober, as the story goes. I saw them later that night. They seemed pretty sober. That something like the size of a bear was walking on 2 feet past their car, cleared the street in like 4 or 5 steps. That's not evidence. I don't give a shit. They could just be fucking with me. I was young when I heard it. The hard proof that I had was I saw the poop stain in somebody's underwear, because they were so scared that they shit their pants.
No
and
way.
I saw the poop in his underwear.
Are you fucking me? They actually did see this.
I saw the poop. I'm not even meaning. I saw.
And they were dead ass sober and he shit.
As the story goes, you can ask my brother. They claim they saw Bigfoot, and I saw the poop. I saw nothing of Bigfoot. I still don't believe in Bigfoot.
We have all the evidence we need, actually. Yeah, this is it.
Hard-hitting evidence.
That's funny. I like that road, because that's a convenient road to skip between, what is that, 303?
But also, that is such a populated area.
It is.
Nobody's ever seen anything. Like, I don't even think it could be a bear, dude. Maybe they were on, like, LSD or something. I just don't even know. But, like, story goes they were dead sober, and I saw the poop.
Word. Okay. Dude, that's hilarious. Before we get back to UAPs, is that in Egypt, the cool thing about Egypt is, first of all, that entire area of the world, like northern Africa, was like green. Like it was not like desert.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I guess it was like a port city. And then when they found the Sphinx, and I don't remember what year, it was like buried under sand. So I'm like,
Yeah.
That's insane to me that you would have to go and like, if you find that under the sand. And also like, this is like the new age spiritual star seed kid in me, is that Napoleon, it's rumored, like, again, this is one of those things where you probably never be able to prove what this person actually said, but Alexander the Great spent a night in the Great Pyramid, and then Napoleon spent a night in the Great Pyramid when they're both like the height of their conquest. And it's rumored, and again, I don't really know where you'd find like official documentation about Napoleon saying these sort of things anyway.
Yeah.
But he said that or one of the people who was with him when he exited the pyramid the next morning said that he was like shaking. He said that like if I told you what I saw, you wouldn't believe me. And actually no, I don't think he said it then. He was shaking when he came out, like totally shaking, and then on his deathbed someone asked him, and he said, if you saw me, you wouldn't believe me. If I told you, you wouldn't believe me. So that's how the story goes.
Yeah.
And so again, Napoleon didn't tell me that himself. This is one article that I read on probably some fringe website. But how the pyramid is built and shaped, and what people always say, like you always hear these like testimonials from people who walked in the pyramid, like the way that it feels, like the frequency, like however it's built, like it amplifies like voices, so like it echoes in a certain way. Like, I don't remember exactly what it is, but the acoustics in the pyramid apparently are like insane.
Yeah,
So
they basically had like the technology of like a coliseum where it projects well before that. Yeah.
Oh, that's wild.
That's the story goes, you know.
Okay.
But yeah, like people claim there's like magnetic field spikes and everything.
Oh, that's
like,
actually true. Like there's a physics like published paper about how it like focuses electromagnetic energy, and like I forget like the exact direction or what capacity, but that was one of the things, like the way it's built, like it actually does focus electromagnetic energy for whatever reason, we don't know why, which is also one of the reasons I'm like, that's not a tomb. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. But that's also one of the things too where you can point back, like that's the cool thing about conspiracies, is like, granted, none of this could be true, and we'll never know, but we're just fucking around and chatting. But like,
yeah,
like with like that in mind, like if there's actual frequencies and stuff, like that means that we were way smarter than we'd ever imagine.
That's the most exciting part.
When you think about thousands of years ago, you think that we're just like rubbing rocks together. Yeah, just like the way that we're taught is like we were dumb as shit, and now we're the shit, you know?
Yeah.
And that also could go back to just kind of that like ancient human type thing with the UAPs, waving that back in, of like, if we were smarter than we know, who's to say that we didn't technologically get so advanced further than we are right now?
Yep.
There's been plenty of people it's documented with war and just a lot of things that have happened throughout humanity, of like trying to erase history that we've had, and rewriting the books that I mean, even reading a U.S. history book in like middle school growing up is going to be fabricated to be like positive of the United States, you know? Yeah. We've done so much fucked up shit, but like we're always going to be like, for the most part, like the cool people. Like you still learn about slavery and you're like, oh yeah, we suck ass. But like there's also just a lot of glorification. So yeah, I don't doubt that there's a lot or a portion of human history that we just don't even know about, and could very well lose forever. So that's kind of plausible in my opinion, you know?
Yeah, I think it was. I don't think written language wasn't even invented until like the Sumerians.
Okay.
Like, according to us, so it's like past the Sumerians, like we don't know shit. But yeah, dude, it is wild. But to answer your original question about, or I don't know if you even asked me the question, but your original concern about why UFOs were being talked about now by the government.
Yeah.
I think it's a great question, because again, you always want to go back to like either where the money goes or like what sort of, because like it's like the government. It's like they're not just going to say this because like dude, we found some cool shit. It's either like, here are my theories. So either whatever it is, if it is like an interdimensional alien or whatever, there's some like inevitable arrival where they're going to show up on their own accord very soon, and they're doing their own thing where it's like, okay, well, we're going to like cover our ass now and lay this out as far as we know. As far as
exactly,
they're going to say what they want to say to us before it happens. That's that. B, and again, this is more of a fantasy than it is me. Then I think, because I feel like that's pretty likely.
Yeah,
if it is aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Again, from whatever knowledge I know. And then B is that if it is aliens and the technology is as wild as it is, then we've reverse engineered it to a point where we know that we can defend ourselves, so we can talk about it now.
Yeah, but then you get it from the flip side where if we reverse engineered it so well that we can replicate it in a sense, why would we tell our competition, enemy countries, that we potentially have this technology? Because that's just showing our cards. When we built the stealth bomber and whatever, like 70s, 80s, whatever, I could be way off on that timeline, like that was hidden deep in classified documents, because we were flying above levels where UAPs could detect us, and we were gathering information. So why would we show our hand if it's our technology, you know?
Right. So do you think it's like a counterintelligence operation? So like they're saying this to like either force their hand to like say what they know, or because
I don't even have a way to lean, if I'm being honest. It's just for
really?
me, like, I haven't theorized that far, or I have given it a lot of thought, but not to that point yet, or done enough research per se. But I am just more under the impression of there's got to be, you don't release that information unless it benefits you and the government, of course.
Okay,
Like,
so right now you just have a blatant suspicion.
Yeah.
And okay. So
yeah,
no,
like
I'm totally
if we're just seeing a bunch of random things flying in the sky, they said like the Navy, I can't remember, it was one of the more recent reports. I'm sure people looked it up if they're interested. Like naval base folks were saying, yeah, we had these run-ins with UAPs daily for weeks, months at a time. Every single day we would see things.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you have something to gain by that, I don't think that information is coming out. Because if we were just coming out kind of like what's being said right now, like, we don't know, nobody knows, we look like dumbasses.
Right.
Like, we want to be the people who know exactly what's going on, and like there's that perception that USA is always going to be the best country in the world, best military, this and that you hear, propaganda within our country of them actually just admitting and being like, we don't know what these things are. To me, that's so vulnerable that it would be very strange to not have a flip side of it, in my opinion, because countries don't really come out that often and are like, hey, there's like some crazy shit that we can't explain. Like when, like, let's say Russia or whoever was starting to notice our stealth bombers before that they were declassified public information, they weren't out there like, hey, like, we got these things, but we don't know what the fuck they are. Like, no, you keep that shit locked up to high stakes official people, and then you talk about the information, you declassify it once you figure it out.
Oh yeah.
So for them to just come out and be like, I don't know, it's just weird to me.
Yeah.
Like maybe it truly is that. They're just saying, hey, we just don't know, and we're letting you know. But to me, that's just too easy of an explanation. It just seems like,
yeah.
You know, it's like so.
And it's uncharacteristic of the American.
It's very uncharacteristic, and it's like the things that we've declassified through time get combed through, just like this report is going to be at the end of the month. It's going to be combed through. A lot of it is still going to be classified, names, dates, who's there to protect people and information that are coming out. But yeah, it's just that there's got to be some positive to telling a common citizen what's going on. Or they're just using it as an umbrella where we have COVID, a giant change in political system of what's going on right now between Trump and Biden, where everybody's alert is on high. And like literally the common person, that was on every single major public network, whether you're left, right, it doesn't matter. It went out to everybody, and not many people are talking about it.
Dude, no one gives a fuck for no reason.
Nobody gives a shit. And it's wild because this is like, to be able to be alive at this point is lucky. Like of course we're going through horrible things. Just got out, not even out of a pandemic. We're
but let's be objective about it. We live in a very unique time.
Yeah, like it's wild the times that we live in right now. And to take that for granted is just crazy that people see a report like that from a major news network and they're still like, a bunch of phonies, you know?
Yeah.
We're like, I'm a hypocrite because I also am like questioning it, but I just have that questioning mind where I'm like,
right, yeah, that's
I don't want to believe whatever. Yeah, I don't want to just believe anything that's out there without like hearing both sides and doing research on everything. But yeah, it's just crazy that so many people swept it under the rug, you know?
Yeah, and I think it was like a tactical decision when people are so burnt out, because people are like burnt out and like just straight up tired with like all, like you said, between
people are tuning out of the news. Yeah, exactly. You don't want to hear it.
And so when you talk about like, dude, if they said this shit like in 2011, like I felt like everyone would have been like, no one, it would have been like the talk of the town. But now it's just like, I talked to like some people, I thought they would have been like hyped to talk about UFOs. Like, yeah, I saw that. Like, it's interesting. And I'm like, dude, the American government is saying that crafts have been going like 18,000 miles per hour.
Yeah.
Like a second. I'm like, what? It's like, dude, they wouldn't just say that shit and not be true. Like, they would have to have like physicists go and check that, because they don't want to be like, American government is a lot of things, but they don't want to like get caught with the pants around their ankles. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to go.
Of course, yeah. And I mean, like, at this point, like, it's that duality of man type thing where like people are getting stupider, but in a way we're getting smarter at the same time because we have so much more. I'll expand. Like, we're like, everybody is in a sense getting dumber because if I don't know where avocados are originally like from, like I'm not going to go to a library and research shit. I'm going to type it in on Google, get my answer and be like, cool, you know?
Right.
But like at that same like counterpoint, we couldn't do that. If you 30 years ago were like, where do avocados come from?
Right.
You better know the fucking Dewey Decimal System, because you're going to the library and you're reading an entire book and you're finding this tiny ass paragraph that's like, oh yeah, they're grown in South America or wherever they're from. Right. So it's like, in a way you get dumber, but also smarter, much smarter. And there's a lot of people out there that are the common who are very good at what they do. Like you said, there's like physicists or whoever that are actually testing this stuff out. There's Joe Schmoes that just sit at their house that are like actually doing this stuff too. The same research that like high class folks are doing, just because they have the tools in their hands.
Right.
It's a powerful thing. You can really know and learn, just like Elon Musk says. I'm a big fan of Elon Musk, where it's like, I don't necessarily agree that college is a total waste of time. I wouldn't per se do it again if I had to, but you can learn anything from college just by doing research. If you put in the same amount of time that a college student does and dedicate it to reading niche things, subset specific, you can learn and be whatever you want to be, you know? So there's definitely that counterbalance of like people being dumb as fuck because you can just gloss it over. But then there's also people that like can take that power of knowledge and information that's out there and easily available to digest and actually using it for good, which is pretty cool.
Oh yeah. And I think I said this to you before, like the amount of information that is online is just insane. Like, I know that's like such like a boomer thing to say, like, oh wow, on the World Wide Web there's so many things at your fingertips, but like seriously so many things are on the internet that like will blow your mind, that are free, open source. And really all it takes is like, you know what's weird is that like actually learning how to Google search, like searching in like search queries, like with quotation marks and stuff like that is actually like a huge skill. Like not a huge skill, but it makes a big difference, I'll say.
That will completely change the way that you type in something. Is obviously going to have a major effect on what you're reading.
Oh yeah, and I feel like, I mean, actually, I'm pretty sure they did do a pretty good job. Like when we were in Hudson, and at the library, they were like teaching us how to search things, and like they did a decent job. But like now, in like my adult life, when I'm doing my own research, I'm like, you need this stuff because like normally when you Google something, you just search in like capital city of the state, and like it'll pop up. But like if you want to learn like something niche, like you need to start using like quotation marks and stuff, and it's bonkers. But anyway, so UAPs, I think what you said is very interesting, and I agree. And my intuition tells me that whatever it is, the U.S. government is completely comfortable knowing like the ins and outs of whatever they see, and now they're gonna act like they're at the beginning stage. Because I just don't see the most powerful nation on earth saying something like that without having that sort of leverage in the background.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, where you don't put out that information or do anything unless you have something to gain, like I said. So they definitely know way more than we're going to know for some time. And that's always how it's been historically,
Right.
Where we learn the technology and then the American people learn about it 25X amount of years later because it's safe to say it then. And I think this is going to be kind of a similar situation where hopefully we learn some sort of actual truth or anything in our lifetimes. But I mean, like I said, it's a wild time to be alive that's actually real discourse that's happening, because those used to be on those like grocery store BS news source magazines that we used to read,
National Enquirer.
like alien body found in Arkansas, and it's like a lady with like a stuffed animal, and it's like that shit was just always batshit crazy. And now it's actually like major news sources talking about it. So it's interesting as fuck. It's it's a really cool time to be alive. And I wish more people could like have these conversations and just kind of BS about it. Cause like it did get swept under the rug, and it's insane that this is even being talked about, and not like, first of all, it's insane it's being talked about and that people are taking it seriously. And it's equally insane that people read the information and then like don't bat an eye at it. You know?
Yeah. It's weird. It's like a Twilight Zone episode.
It is. Yeah, because it's like this is stuff that like people have been waiting to hear for a long time, and then you hear it, and it's like, cool.
Yeah.
Maybe we're so desensitized because like we've been battered and beaten to shit the last like X amount of years of like wild like absolutely BANANAS things happening. But it's just boiled down to I can't believe people are just treating it like it's nothing.
I agree. And I think one of the things, to just jump back real quick to like the abstract nature of talking about conspiracies, that it's unfortunate that nowadays that we have to have, because if you and I just talked like in a private setting, like if I just like brought over a 6-pack and we talked, like we wouldn't have to have disclaimers about whether or not like we believe certain things, because like I know like I'm not gonna be like call up like Jake Toth and be like, dude, Bryce fucking believes this shit. Like I would have been like, Bryce and I just talked about conspiracies for like 2 hours. But it's like now it's like there's like this bullshit land grab where like there's like a certain amount of clout involved for the first person to call out someone and say they believe this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like very weird. It's like, this person doesn't actually believe it. They haven't said explicitly they believe it, but like people just be like, I want to be the first. I want to jump on this opportunity to like make sure I point this out first. First of all, cover my own ass. Probably first and foremost. And second of all, to be like, I mean, no, I really just think it's the first one. And so I think it's bullshit. But I mean, like, again, like, I mean, I think it's necessary. It's like a survival thing for us to have this disclaimer, which is just unfortunate. I feel like even though we are really lucky to be in these times, it's an unfortunate aspect of these times. So we have to say this shit.
Yeah. I mean, that even circles back to like kind of the cancel culture stuff where like people will see this and like, I'm sure this is going to be titled like talks about conspiracies, this and that. And it's like, some people see that and just like wave it off and be like, oh, okay, they're just bad. There's wild. they're
Right.
stupid that they're even talking about this stuff. And then, yeah, like the fact that you have to do the disclaimers is definitely unfortunate, but it's necessary because it's like me and you are just two buddies shooting the shit right now, talking about stuff that we've read and heard of and don't even necessarily believe. But the fact that it's in this setting and going to get posted, you have to be self aware to the fact and put out those breadcrumbs so that people can't grab a clip and be
Right.
like, oh, this is what Bryce believes. Like if I'm applying for a company in however many years, they pick out this little detail, and then I can point back and be like, hey, did you also skip that I said disclaimer? This is me and a friend talking, and it's not 100% serious. It's just
Right.
we're just talking about stuff and having a good time. And yeah, that's definitely just unfortunate that that is the way that things are.
Yes. I think that before we wrap up, because this is like an
Mhm.
hour and 50 minutes, it's been
Okay.
a blast
Oh
talking about
shit, is this the
conspiracies.
longest one?
It's coming up there. I mean, if you don't mind, we should do it for like 10 more minutes just so we can hit 2 hours. I think it'll be
Let's hit the record. I don't give a shit.
let's do it. So yeah, I think that it's very interesting that the government went 70 years silencing people. And like I don't know of any instances or even any rumors of the government like suiciding people, but I
Mhm.
do know tons. I mean, every single alien abduction story to this point has been like, okay, well you're schizophrenic, or like
Yep.
any other person who said like, any of that stuff is that they've done this. It's like it's weird that it's like either you go on like an apology tour and say like, sorry, this was a 70-year long psyop where we were silencing people and now we know.
Mhm.
Um, but the most interesting thing is I was going to tell you what your opinion is. Did you see the Reddit post on r/conspiracy, I think, or maybe it was r/aliens or UFOs, about the dude? His name was like Traveler or something, like Traveler in a few numbers. He said that he was abducted by. He made one Reddit post like 7 years ago, and he
Mhm.
said that he was abducted by aliens. And okay, the thing is, like, disclaimer is that I mean, obviously, disclaimer. It's a fucking Reddit post. There was no.
Yeah.
That's all it
Yeah,
was.
it's anonymous. Yeah.
Yeah, it's some rando. It could have been a fanfic,
Mhm.
but it was written like
Yeah.
a fanfic. So it's like what this dude talked about was him getting abducted by aliens, and they showed him HD footage of like the pyramids being built. And so everyone wrote it off like it wasn't even like it just was like a typical like, okay, this dude is probably just writing some story. It's probably a LARP.
Yeah.
But he said that the aliens wanted to come here and to show themselves, like to announce their existence on July 18th of 2021. And he said this like 7 years ago, and this happened to be within like less than a month of his UAP report, which
Yeah.
also sort of feeds into the fact that I said that if it would make sense that the government would to announce something like this in sort of like a desensitization effort, if you want to call it that, um, in preparation for this like inevitable arrival. So this dude, this Redditor, came back like a month or so ago,
Same account.
same account, and it was like a second post, and he responded to everyone's like questions, and then like 2 weeks later he deleted his account. So no one knows. There's all some mystique behind it, but the reason why people are giving it so much weight is that his prediction, what he said the aliens would tell him, was within a month of the UAP
Of the
report.
report.
So
Yeah.
it's funny that like that little tidbit, the community gave his story so much credence.
Mhm.
And so I'm curious if you believe, not believe in, that's way to trap you really quick. I'm curious what your thoughts are on alien abduction stories.
So for me, I've definitely danced around the idea of if it's actual extraterrestrial beings, what's so be it, whatever type of theory that you want to go with. But it really doesn't even pertain to that because even if you believe it's ancient humans, us right now, our military already has this technology, and we've reverse engineered it successfully without people dying. We can replicate these things. Uh, it would still definitely hold some sort of weight because if you have a technology that nobody else knows about, you can take advantage of it. And, like even in the United States, testing things on humans is not profound. Like we had, it's slipping my mind right now, but like the information that came out about us, like giving people like drugging people with LSD and like the drugs and stuff, like to see the effects that happen if we can utilize it in war, like a truth serum type situation. That's like the movie.
MK Ultra?
Yeah, MK Ultra. Like the movie The Men Who Stare at Goats, those type of things. If you've seen that, George Clooney. Like there's those aspects too. And those could definitely hold weight. I don't want to discredit those people that have said that they've been abducted. Do I think that there's people who've been abducted that actually are schizophrenic, potentially had sleep paralysis? I always like to do research on both sides, like play devil's advocate with myself on these type of things that are up in the air, just so that I don't fall down that rabbit hole of one way. But it's definitely plausible for sure. Okay. I won't say that it's not right, you know. It's definitely plausible. Yeah.
And I think honestly, like my quickest way of what's the word? Not identifying. Of
like weeding out.
Yeah, like weeding out certain like alien abduction stories is like, is that person looking for clout? Like, does it look like they have a big ego and they're here to be an opportunist? Or are they like actually reluctant and they don't want to tell anyone their story, but like they'll say like, okay, like this happened, I have no idea what to make of it. That's that. I'm not here to write a book or like have like a soundbite. That would be a lot different to me. Because I'm like, there's someone who's like definitely fishing for attention. So I feel like there are a lot of people out there, both parties that I just mentioned, like opportunists and people who are just like, dude, I have no fucking idea. About, you know, what they saw. The one thing that I did want to ask you, this just came up randomly, and I know that you said earlier that you're not exactly like spiritual or religious, or did you say you weren't spiritual?
No. This was before the podcast happened.
Oh, that's right.
So I definitely am like spiritual. I believe in like potentially a higher power of some kind, but not per se anything that falls under religious guidelines. Like there's things that line up with religion, but I don't view myself as a religion, if that makes sense. I'm not an atheist. That would be agnostic, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's funny though is that like, sorry, keep going.
No, yeah, I was just gonna say I'm kind of like that, but I do believe that that just goes into more stuff like maybe there is just nothing and we have to give ourselves some sort of meaning to life, or else it all just doesn't make sense. And if we mean nothing, what's the point of living? Like there's that type of thought process, and like we want to believe that there's so much more grand scheme, but like to me, everything that's ever happened in the world, like if you believe in evolution and like Earth flooding, ice age, apparently like humanity got down to like, I believe it was like a couple thousand people, and like repopulating. Like there's the way that life held on for humanity specifically, because of course there's a lot of extinctions that have happened. It's special. I'd like to think so. So I definitely see it as I am spiritual for sure, but not religious.
Yeah, okay, I hear you. And I think it's funny because like I want to call myself agnostic, but I feel like I do believe in a higher power too, because I feel like the definition of agnostic is that you don't know, or like you don't want to like make claims. But I feel like I do believe in a higher power, but I'm with you in the fact that like, I don't believe in I'm not a follower of any religious sect at all. Like my name is Christian, but I'm not a follower of like the Christian faith by the book. And so I think it's very interesting. But one of the things that I wanted to bring up to you is that I asked this question to Hunter Gone, and I said, do you know if God exists? Because Carl Jung was asked that question. He said, do you believe in God? And he said, I don't, like, he mentioned that someone else said this, but he said, I don't believe in God, but I know that God exists. And so he asked him why. So I don't know if you're familiar with like the collective unconscious ideas by Carl Jung. Do you know?
Okay.
Hola? You good?
No.
Oh, wait.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Wait. Oh, you're behind now. Wait. Are you good now?
I can hear you now. Yeah, I
Okay.
was lagging for a second, but like I'm with you now.
Okay, cool. That was weird. Because your video, like, it paused for like a minute, and then anyway, okay, we're back. What was I saying? So you haven't heard
You were
anything
saying,
about Carl Jung's collective unconscious?
no, not really, not enough
Okay.
to say that I am familiar. Yeah, I've like heard of it, but yeah, that's
Okay.
about the extent.
So there was a lot of like when I first heard it, I thought it was like a new age adaptation of something that he said that was very like empirical. Like I thought when he said collective unconscious, I thought it meant like everyone has some sort of baseline consciousness where they get like certain like cues from. Like everyone has the conscious like ability to be like I don't know, like a certain like human instinct. So I thought he said originally, I thought there was like some new age adaptation where he was like collective unconscious is something that is some like spiritual aspect of the human experience, and like this is like an example of like how we're all connected and there's a higher power and stuff. But his story about how he believes in the collective unconscious, or the video that I saw in the same interview where someone asked him if he believed in God, is he was visiting a schizophrenic patient in I think it was in Switzerland, because I think he's from Switzerland. He's somewhere in Europe, and this one schizophrenic dude brought him to the window, and so like he brought him to the window, he like pulled down the blinds, and he was like saying something about the sun, and Carl Jung was just like listening to him like, this dude's wild. He's like saying something about the sun, and he said like sometime later, like recently, or like I don't remember if it was like months down the lines, days or weeks, but some ancient like texts, like thousands of years old, were just uncovered. And again, like the information is fleeting my mind, but some ancient texts were like found, and whatever was transcribed from this language into English or whatever language he understood, German, said exactly what the schizophrenic dude told him in the hospital regarding like the sun. And he said that there was no possible way that the schizophrenic man would have learned what these manuscripts said, because they've been buried in like whatever they were in antiquity for thousands of years. And he said it was like, because Carl Jung also believed in like the importance of synchronicities, like acausal events. Are you familiar with those?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so he was like, the fact that like, this dude told him this right before these scripts were found is just mind blowing. So anyway, like the collective unconscious is that like somehow there's some sort of like connectivity between people at that level, which to me blows my mind. And like I think the coolest thing about like scientists like Fermi, I don't know, you know who Fermi is? He's the dude who was behind like Fermi's paradox. You know,
I'm not familiar with it.
Oh shit, Fermi's paradox is why are we the only life observed in the observable universe so far? So it's like, is there like a great filter that we're about to pass? Like, are we like a super rare, or is like climate change gonna end us, and that's why we're here to observe ourselves now, because we're like about to die? Anyway, Fermi worked on like radiation. I forget his original experiments, but he was in Italy in 1933 with the first crash that I told you about earlier. Yeah, it's funny because those UFO crashes started coming up when we had nukes, and I think it's interesting because like his experiments led up to nukes stuff. Anyway, or nuclear stuff like that. But anyway, I'm just curious about what you think about when you say higher power. Do you believe that you are a fragment of the higher power? Like, what is your understanding of your relation to the higher power?
I'm not going to pretend like I know or am comfortable with the information that I have or sometimes think. For me, it's like it's like fluid of like my thought process of where we are. I haven't had a definite understanding or belief system of why we're here, what potential power there is. It's ebbs and flows. I teeter-totter all the time. It's something that's not always on the forefront of my thoughts, every now and then it's more of like a meditative state, or I'm with myself and like thinking about these things. I have a specific moment that's happening, or a big event in my life that makes me reflect a little bit, where I start to think about that stuff. But it's never been stagnant. So
Okay.
I can't really lean one way and give it like if I'm a fragment of a higher power, or however you want to word it. But just to me, it just seems too grand scale, too many coincidences that would have happened to be right here exactly where we are. But then also, I have those thoughts as well on the other side. I've always been kind of a devil's advocate with myself of like, it could just be nothing, you know? Like, it could just be nothing. Everything's meaningless. Why am I even alive? But that could just be me being depressed and shit, you know? Because that's real. But yeah, it's never been stagnant. So I can't really point to one direction or anything. It's I kind of just go with the flow of like my thoughts in that day. But as of recent, I've been a lot more not really spiritual, but when those type of coincidences and stuff happen, I kind of feel like it's not just a coincidence. I feel like there's kind of a reason for everything, you know?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny is that as we conclude this, I think it's funny that we can openly talk about faith and not have to have disclaimers about why we believe in like a higher power.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
It is weird, yeah, because, well, it's different in the fact of like, if you believe in religion, there are people, if you're like atheist or whatever, who are going to be like, those people are crocks of shit.
That's
and
true.
then there's religious people who look at atheists and they're like, oh, they're crocks of shit. But I don't know. I feel like the way that we tiptoe around it and everything, it's not something that necessarily needs a disclaimer, because at least in this time, in our generation more specifically, we are a lot more open about religion, and we have a lot of folks our age who are super religious. A lot of my friends are very close with God, and among different religions. But they also are more accepting of my viewpoints, because I'm not one to ever just squash the idea of like, haha, you believe in God, you're an idiot, or like, haha, you believe in nothing, you're an idiot, because I go through different phases, and it's just different. So I think that's just, we keep kind of circling back to shit we've talked about, but like, I feel like our generation, of course, you have bullies and people who are gonna pick on you, make things mean. You can hide behind a screen, but for the most part, if you actually connect with people, people are pretty open and understanding about a lot of stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And I'm glad that we've passed that hurdle regarding that aspect of life. Yeah. So I don't know, dude. I feel like, I mean, first of all, I mean, I am so happy to have the chance to talk about conspiracies, And,
yeah, man, me too. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, this was definitely so much fun. So, if you have any plugs, social media, anything like that you want people to hit you up, no, off the grid. This man's off the grid with his tinfoil hat.
I tried to wipe myself from social media and like the face of the earth, unless you actually know me. No more Facebook, Twitter. You're not gonna know unless you're already following me in like a real one. But yeah, Instagram's also locked. I don't want you to follow me. I'll probably deny your request if you try to follow me. But if I don't know you, yeah, I don't give a shit about you. But I will plug these guys right here. Huh? A little brewery in Southern Ohio, Urban Artifacts. If you like beers, absolutely magnifique. They've fueled this conversation. Great beers, a lot of different ones. Urban Artifacts, check them out. It's my only plug. And this is fucking the worst. Jake already saw it. I just watched you and Jake's part 2. Green lights. Jake put me on to Green Lights. Fantastic. Highly recommend the audiobook. I had a lot of ups and downs. Listened to that on the airplane, and made me have some self-realizations of my own, and changed my life a little bit listening to it. Recommended. It's pretty good. And on the funny side, I read Yearbook by Seth Rogen, another like autobiography type thing, but funny. It's great. It's not as much of like self-reflecting, but very lighthearted, very funny. If you like Seth Rogen, I recommend it. Give it a listen or a read. It's pretty good.
Hell yeah. Okay. If you made it this far, Thanks for watching. Peace.
Peace.